Am I the idiot for changing the locks on my house after my grandmother let random kids use my pool without permission? Sorry in advance for the wall of text. So I, male 35, finally bought my own house last year after saving forever. Like, literally a decade of living with roommates, eating ramen, and putting away every spare penny I could. My parents died in a car accident about 5 years ago. Still hurts to type that out. And left me some money, which combined with my savings from working as an electrical engineer, helped me get this place. It's nothing fancy, just a modest 3-bedroom in a decent suburb, but it's mine, you know. Anyway, for the past few months, I've been working on this huge backyard renovation. I spent like $25,000, which is a ton for me, putting in a custom in-ground pool and doing all this landscaping work. I've always been into gardening since I was a teenager, used to help my mom with her garden and kind of kept it up after she passed as a way to feel connected to her, I guess. I ordered these super specific, rare plant varieties that took forever to find and cost way more than regular plants, but whatever. It was my dream yard. My grandmother, Eleanor, female, 73, has always been really critical. She's my dad's mom and lives like 15 minutes away. Ever since I was in college, she's made these little comments about how I spend money. Like when I bought a used car instead of taking the bus, she went on this whole thing about how in her day they walked everywhere. And she's constantly comparing me to my cousin Mark, who works in finance and makes way more than me. But the pool thing really got to her. Every time she visited during the construction, she'd say stuff like how my father never needed such fancy things, or how they used the community pool back in her day, and how my generation can't afford houses, even though I literally just bought a house. So last Thursday, I came home after a 12-hour shift, been pulling extra hours to help pay for the renovation, and I walk into my backyard to find 3 random kids splashing around in my pool completely unsupervised. They were like between 2 to 4 years old, maybe, and they were throwing what looked like cheese puffs into my pool and stomping all over my new flower beds that I had just finished planting. And there's my grandmother sitting on my patio furniture with some woman I've never met, drinking iced tea and chatting like everything was completely normal. I just stood there for like a solid minute trying to process what I was seeing. Like, am I hallucinating from exhaustion right now? I asked my grandma what was going on. She just introduced me to her friend Margaret from church, like that was all I needed to know. When I asked about the kids who were destroying my garden, she just waved her hand and told me not to be so uptight, saying kids need to play outside instead of looking at screens. I noticed the water in the pool looked cloudy and off color. I'm super careful about maintaining the chemical balance. And I asked how long they'd been there. Margaret told me her grandchildren had been having a wonderful time for a couple hours now, like I should be happy about it. I asked how they even got in because I never gave my grandmother a pool key. That's when she told me she's been using the spare house key I gave her for emergencies to show off the place to her friends for weeks while I'm at work. I tried to explain calmly that the damage to the pool and garden would cost thousands to fix. The chemicals were visibly off, meaning I'd need professional cleaning, and those plants were special ordered. She told me that family property is family property and that my father would want his mother's friends to enjoy this pool. I was like, what? Since when is my house that I bought with my money family property? Margaret looked uncomfortable, but didn't say anything. When I asked my grandmother if she was planning to contribute to the repairs, she said she couldn't on her fixed income, and that I have plenty of money from my parents. I'll admit I raised my voice at this point. I told them they needed to leave immediately, and my grandmother called me ungrateful and disrespectful while she gathered up Margaret and the kids, who were still throwing snacks in my pool as they left. After they left, I did a full damage assessment, approximately $6,800 in repairs, including professional pool cleaning, chemical rebalancing, replacement of damaged pool equipment, and restoration of my destroyed garden beds. Some of those plants I can't even replace until next season. The weird thing is, my grandmother was never this entitled when my dad was alive. Like, she could be critical, but she respected boundaries. I value family above everything. It's all I have left of my parents, really, but I feel completely disrespected by her behavior. So I changed all the locks, installed a comprehensive security system with cameras covering all entrances in the backyard, and gave my grandmother a new key with very clear boundaries. She can only visit and use the pool when I'm home. Period. She acted completely offended and has been complaining to the entire extended family about my lack of trust. And now I'm getting calls and texts from aunts, uncles, and cousins telling me to let it go because she's old and lonely since my grandfather died 3 years ago. My cousin Mark, the perfect one, called me to say I was being too harsh on an old woman who just wants connection. My girlfriend thinks I should stand my ground, but my best friend says maybe I am being too hard on an elderly woman who's probably just bored and looking for ways to socialize. I don't want to completely cut her off because she's my only real connection to my dad, but I also can't have her treating my house like a public park for her church friends. The whole thing is making me sick with stress. Am I the idiot for changing the locks and setting boundaries with my grandmother? Edit. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To clarify for those asking, yes, I've tried talking to her many times about respecting my property before this incident. And yes, I did give her a new key, just with clear limitations on when she can use it. Several people have asked if I'm willing to let her use the pool at all. Yes, I'm happy to have her come over and use it when I'm home. It's not about banning her, it's about supervision and respect for my property. For the people suggesting I'm being cruel to an elderly woman, she's not frail or confused. She's active in her church, drives herself everywhere, and travels with her friends regularly. This isn't about elder care. It's about basic respect. Some of you asked about homeowners insurance. Yes, I contacted them, but because I willingly gave her a key, they consider this an invited guest situation, not vandalism or break-in. So they're only covering a small portion of the damages. And no, my grandmother refuses to help with the costs at all. Now for the first update, after I changed the locks and set up the security system, which, by the way, cost me another $1,800 on top of the pool's garden damage. But whatever, things seemed to calm down with my grandmother. I mean, she was still making these little comments whenever we talked on the phone, but nothing major. A bunch of family members were still giving me the cold shoulder, but my cousin Mark eventually backed off after I sent him pictures of the actual damage. Last week, I invited my grandmother over for dinner, as kind of an olive branch thing. I figured we could talk it out like adults and move forward. The dinner was fine, I guess, like civil enough, but she kept making these passive-aggressive comments about not being trusted in her own son's house. I tried explaining again that it's actually my house that I paid for, but she just did this dismissive hand-wave thing she always does. Then she brought up something from when I was like 8 that I'd completely forgotten about, how I used to be terrified of swimming, and my dad had to basically push me into the pool to get over it. She reminded me that my father believed in sharing and pushing through fears, and that he would want the family to enjoy what I have. I doubt my dad would have been cool with random toddlers throwing cheese puffs into a brand new pool, but whatever. Anyway, I thought things were mostly resolved, even if not perfect. My girlfriend says I should just accept that Eleanor will always be Eleanor and stop expecting her to suddenly respect boundaries at 73. But then, things got weird. So the past couple weeks, I've been super stressed at work. We're going through layoffs, and everyone's on edge. And I started noticing little things missing around the house. Nothing major at first, just stuff not being where I swear I left it. Like I couldn't find this fancy bottle opener my friend got me, and a couple books weren't on the shelf where they should be. I figured I was just being forgetful because of the stress or whatever. But then on Tuesday, I went looking for my mom's jewelry collection. Our anniversary is coming up next month, and I thought maybe I could give my girlfriend one of my mom's pieces. Nothing super fancy, just something meaningful, you know. I keep the jewelry in this wooden box my dad made in his workshop before he died. It's in my bedroom closet on the top shelf. So I get the box down, and some of the pieces are just gone, including this diamond pendant necklace that was specifically mentioned in my mom's will as being left to me. It was her favorite piece, the one thing of hers I actually wanted to keep forever. At first, I was like, maybe I misplaced it during the move, but no, I specifically remember unpacking that box and putting everything carefully away. Then I realized other stuff was missing too. A couple of silver frames with family photos from the hallway, 2 really expensive bottles of whiskey my coworker gave me as a housewarming gift, and about $500 in emergency cash I kept in my desk drawer. I'm not materialistic or whatever. I mean, I lived with 3 roommates and ate ramen for a decade to save for this house. But the necklace especially, it was the last thing I had from my mom that was really hers, you know. Not just some random object, but something she wore all the time and specifically wanted me to have. So I checked all over my house, getting more and more panicked, thinking maybe I moved this stuff and forgot. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. I started wondering if maybe someone broke in, but there were no signs of forced entry. And then I remembered the security cameras. I sat down at my computer and started going through the footage from the past couple weeks. Most of it was just me coming and going, delivery people dropping stuff off, nothing unusual. I was fast-forwarding through days of normal activity when suddenly I see my grandmother using her key to enter my house while I'm at work. I felt really upset. I kept watching, hoping maybe she just came by to drop something off or whatever. But no, the footage shows her walking through different rooms of my house, opening cabinets, checking drawers, even looking under furniture. On one visit, she literally opens my refrigerator and helps herself to food. On another day, she brings some friend I've never met for a tour of my house. My hands were literally shaking as I kept going through more footage. And then, there it was. Crystal clear 4K footage of my grandmother in my bedroom, finding the jewelry box and going through it. She holds up my mom's diamond necklace to the light, looks at it for a minute, and then puts it in her purse. She's muttering something to herself that I can't quite make out. Other clips showed her taking the frames, the alcohol, and opening my desk drawer and taking the cash. I felt sick, like physically nauseous. This is my grandmother, my dad's mom, the woman who used to make me cookies when I visited as a kid. What the actual hell? I decided to handle it privately instead of calling her out to the whole family. I invited her for coffee at this cafe near her place, thinking a public setting would keep things civil. When we met up, I tried to be casual, asked if she'd been to my house when I wasn't home. She shifted in her seat, but straight up denied any recent visits. I mentioned some items seemed to be missing from my house, and she immediately suggested I should be more organized and less accusatory, her exact word. I tried to stay calm and asked gently if she'd taken anything from the house. Her face got all red and she got super defensive. She actually said I was being paranoid and untrusting, just like your father, which is rich considering my dad was the most trusting person ever. That's why everyone took advantage of him. When I specifically mentioned my mom's necklace was missing, she got really upset. She told me she was hurt by the accusation and that I cared more about objects than family relationships. When I tried to explain, I just wanted my mom's necklace back. She stormed out saying I needed to sort out my priorities. Like, the next day, all hell broke loose. I've gotten like 15 calls from various aunts, uncles, and cousins claiming I cruelly accused poor Grandma Eleanor of being a thief. Apparently, she's telling everyone that I'm the one who stole jewelry from her house, some gold bracelet my grandfather gave her, and that I'm making up lies because she criticized my wasteful pool. The family group chat is a disaster. People are taking sides. The annual family summer barbecue has been canceled because of all this drama. And somehow I'm the villain who disrespects his elderly grandmother. I just don't understand why she would steal from me. I've always offered to help her financially when she needed it. She knows how much my mom's stuff means to me. It makes no sense. I have all this footage that proves exactly what happened, but I'm hesitant to share it with everyone. I mean, it would publicly humiliate her, and despite everything, she's still my grandmother. I keep hoping she'll just come clean and return my stuff, especially the necklace. What do I do? How do I clear my name without completely destroying my relationship with my grandmother and turning the whole family against her? Why would she even do this? Edit. To those asking why I haven't shown the video evidence to anyone yet, I guess I'm still processing all of this. It's one thing to prove I'm right, but another to share footage of an elderly family member stealing and potentially ruin her reputation forever. I'm trying to find a middle ground. Several people have suggested I check local pawn shops. That's actually a really good idea I hadn't thought of. I'll try that tomorrow and update. For the people suggesting I'm making this up, why would I? What do I gain from inventing a story about my grandmother stealing from me? Trust me, I wish this was fiction. To answer questions about the security system, yes, it records inside my house too. After the pool incident, I wanted full coverage. And no, my grandmother doesn't know about the indoor cameras. They're pretty discreet, and I never specifically told her about them, just mentioned I upgraded security. Maybe that's an invasion of privacy, but it's my house. A few people have asked if my grandmother has money problems or if there's been any personality changes lately. Honestly, I don't know. We've never been super close since my dad died. She seems the same as always to me, but I guess I don't know much about her financial situation. My Aunt Patricia might know more, but we don't really talk much. Now for the second update. First, thank you guys for all the advice on my last posts. I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through this without this community. The suggestion to check local pawn shops was particularly helpful, and yeah, I'll get to that. It's been a hell of a week since my last update. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my grandmother has now told everyone in the family that I stole $5,000 in cash from her bedroom. Yep, apparently I snuck into her house and took money she was saving for medical expenses. I literally found out about this accusation when my phone started blowing up with texts and calls from family members I barely even talked to. My uncle Steve, my dad's younger brother, 58, even called and threatened to get the police involved if I don't return what I took. He was literally yelling at me over the phone. For context, Steve and my dad always had this weird, competitive relationship. Steve always felt like the lesser brother and was jealous of my dad for everything. So of course, he'd jump at the chance to play hero for my grandmother and villainize me. He's always been weirdly hostile toward me, even when I was a kid, probably because I remind him of my dad or whatever. So anyway, I was sitting in my kitchen just completely overwhelmed with all these accusations when I remembered someone in the comments suggested checking pawn shops for my mom's necklace. I honestly didn't think it would work, but I was desperate and needed to do something. I spent all day Tuesday going to different pawn shops in a 15-mile radius of my grandmother's house. The first two places were complete dead ends, and I was starting to feel stupid for even trying. But then at this place called Golden Opportunities Pawn, I showed the owner a photo of my mom's diamond necklace. The guy recognized it immediately. He confirmed that an elderly woman, matching my grandmother's description, had sold it about 2 weeks ago. He remembered her specifically because she seemed really upset, stressed, and said she needed the money urgently. He said she only got $1,200 for it. The necklace is worth around $8,000. I felt sick. This was the one thing I had from my mom that was really special and personal, and my grandmother just pawned it for a fraction of its value. While I was still processing this, my phone rang, and it was my Aunt Patricia, Eleanor's daughter, female, 62. I was honestly expecting another accusation, but she said she didn't believe my grandmother's story about me stealing money from her. Patricia told me something that finally made everything click. Apparently, my grandmother has significant gambling debts at this local casino. Patricia only found out because she was helping with Eleanor's taxes last month and noticed some weird discrepancies. She said Eleanor's behavior has gotten increasingly erratic since my grandfather died. Mysterious cash withdrawals, unexplained absences, constantly claiming to be visiting friends but never saying who. I sat there just completely speechless. The gambling thing actually explains so much. I mean, why else would my grandmother, who's always been stingy about money, suddenly need to pawn valuable jewelry? And why she took my emergency cash and the expensive whiskey and the silver frames. At this point, I was just done with all the lies and accusations. I decided to take a pretty drastic step and arranged a family meeting at my house. I invited everyone who'd been involved, my grandmother, aunts, uncles, and the cousins who'd been most vocal about the situation. I spent a whole day preparing, getting the security footage ready, printing the pawn shop receipt, and making sure I had everything documented. I felt really uncomfortable about the whole confrontation thing, but honestly, what choice did I have? I couldn't just let my reputation be destroyed and be accused of stealing when I had video evidence of who the real thief was. When everyone started arriving, the mood was super awkward. Nobody was really talking to each other, just awkward small talk and uncomfortable silences. Steve immediately started asking why I'd called everyone together in this dramatic way. My cousin Mark made some sarcastic comment about the accused hosting the meeting. My grandmother arrived last, and I swear she had this whole frail old lady act going on that I'd never seen before. She refused to sit anywhere near me and kept giving me these hurt looks. Patricia tried to keep things calm, suggesting everyone should hear me out before jumping to conclusions. My Uncle Frank kept saying this whole thing was unnecessary and family matters should stay private. Eleanor interrupted him to say she was too old to be summoned like a child and didn't appreciate the way I was handling things. I tried to stay calm and explained that I wanted to address the accusations against me once and for all. She immediately interrupted me and doubled down on her story about me stealing her money. Steve backed her up, saying the evidence was obvious and that I needed to come clean. That's when I told everyone I'd installed a security system after the pool incident, and I had something to show them. I got everyone into the living room where I'd connected my laptop to the TV. I started by showing footage of the original pool incident, just to give context for why I installed the security system in the first place. I could see people shifting uncomfortably, seeing the actual damage those kids did to my property. Eleanor tried to interrupt, saying this was irrelevant to the theft, but I just calmly continued and showed footage of her entering my house alone on multiple occasions. The room got completely silent as the video clearly showed her searching through my drawers and cabinets. Steve tried to say something, but got shushed by multiple people. Then I played the clip of Eleanor finding and taking the diamond necklace. The footage is super clear, and you can even hear her muttering that she would have wanted her to have this anyway, as she puts it in her purse. My grandmother stood up at that point, shouting about illegal spying and how I had violated her privacy. Patricia guided her back to her seat while I continued showing clips of Eleanor taking the other items. Then I presented the pawnshop receipt and explained what the owner had told me about her selling the necklace. That's when she finally collapsed. She went from rage about the cameras to just completely falling apart. She couldn't deny it anymore, with all the evidence right there. She admitted everything. The gambling addiction that started after my grandfather died, the mounting debts, how she was too ashamed to tell anyone in the family she needed help. The whole room was just shocked. Some family members immediately started apologizing to me, while others sat there in silence. Patricia stepped forward with a solution. Eleanor would enter a treatment program for her gambling addiction. The family would help address her financial situation, and I could retrieve my mom's necklace from the pawn shop, which I did the very next day. Thank God it hadn't been sold yet. We established some new boundaries. Eleanor obviously doesn't have access to my house anymore. She's starting therapy and Gamblers Anonymous meetings, and the family is creating a trust to help manage her finances with Patricia as the trustee. I have such mixed feelings about everything. I'm relieved to be vindicated, but also really sad about how this has damaged our family. I feel guilty about having to publicly expose my grandmother's problems. But what else could I have done? Some family members have sincerely apologized for jumping to conclusions, while others, especially Steve, are still being distant and weird about the whole thing. Eleanor has started treatment, and we had one brief, super awkward meeting where she expressed regret but didn't actually apologize directly. Rebuilding trust is going to take a long time, and to be honest, I'm still angry about the whole thing. But I recognize that her behavior came from deeper issues that needed to be addressed. I've kept the security cameras, but I've been more careful about privacy concerns. The family is slowly working on better communication, but I honestly don't know if family gatherings will ever feel normal again. I hope that getting all these difficult truths out in the open will eventually lead to healing, but some relationships might never fully recover. And yeah, I got my mom's necklace back. I keep looking at it and feeling this weird mix of relief and sadness. I immediately put it in a safe deposit box at my bank because I'm honestly too paranoid to keep it at home now. To the people asking if I pressed charges, no, I didn't. Despite everything, she's still my grandmother and she's clearly struggling with addiction. I wanted the truth out there and my stuff back, not to send an elderly family member to jail. Several people asked about the pool damage. Yes, it's all fixed now. The garden will take more time to fully restore, but I've replanted what I could. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To those suggesting I'm being too forgiving, maybe, but addiction is complicated and I'm trying to have some compassion. That doesn't mean I trust her again, though. A lot of you are asking if I think the gambling was going on before my grandfather died. I honestly don't know. Patricia seems to think it started as a coping mechanism after he passed, but who knows how long it was really happening. To answer the questions about Steve, no, we haven't made peace yet. He sent a very brief text apologizing for jumping to conclusions, but hasn't really acknowledged how aggressive he was about the whole thing. I'm not holding my breath for a real apology.